Hello, all. In case you haven't heard, it appears that Donald Trump has finally cut off all aid to Ukraine. Actually, technically, they're saying Marco Rubio did it. But I think that Zelensky's in a world of deep and serious trouble, huh? Let's talk. Well, you will have to forgive me if I'm struggling and coughing and stuff like that. I just finished stuffing my face full of pizza. Not expecting this, but I was looking around online, and let's take a look. Actually, somebody in the chat said, "No, no, no." Trump cut off all aid, but not to Ukraine and Israel. Well, apparently that has changed. Let's start here. Boom. U.S. suspends new funds for aid programs accepting Israel and Egypt. Basically, what Trump did, apparently, sometime today, he issued an executive order, and that executive order was more specific, I think, than the last one. And basically, it said cut off all aid to everyone, and then it gave some exceptions. And that did include Elensky. Okay. So if we go down here, administration, President Donald Trump has announced a freeze on almost all new funding for foreign assistance programs, with exceptions for allies Israel and Egypt. And of course, Egypt is on the Israeli border and it controls some of the entrances to Gaza. The order from the State Department also includes exceptions for emergency food programs, not health programs that supporters say provide vital life-saving services. How about some vital life-saving services for Americans for a change? You think? Uh, Humanitarian organizations immediately expressed alarm at the directive, voicing fears it contribute to global instability and loss of life. Oh yeah, because certainly the United States government's policies never ever cause global instability and loss of life. The idea that is the plan with our money is to cause global instability and loss of life. By suspending foreign development assistance, they give you the propaganda. Trump is threatening the lives and futures of communities in crisis and abandoning the United States long-held bipartisan approach. That's how we know it's wrong. It's a bipartisan approach of foreign assistance, which supports people based on need, regardless of politics. Yeah, ask the people in Slovakia right now who've got a color revolution. How about Georgia, color revolution? Every time you turn around, people are sick of the color revolutions, and we're sick of paying for them. The temporary freeze is slated to last for a period of at least 3 months. In the first 85 days, Rubio is expected to make decisions. So 85 days, and Rubio says yay or nay. Let me find it. They go through some of the PEPFAR. That was the AIDS one. There was no indication of a similar exemption for Ukraine, which largely relies on U.S. weapons assistance in its fight to repel a Russian full-scale invasion launched in February 2022. So listen to this. So it says the U.S. has spent more than $60 billion in foreign assistance since 2023, more than any other country overall. That's for Ukraine. But that sum accounts for about 1% of U.S. government spending. Well, how's this? Ukraine doesn't have a right to 1% of U.S. government spending. How about you give us 1% of Ukraine government spending? The answer is no. Now listen to this. You're going to love this. But that sum account, okay. In the aftermath of Friday's memo, some aid projects around the world received work stop orders. Good. This is lunacy, said Jeremy Conium. What the hell kind of name is that? I mean, could you buy a vowel, dude? Buy a vowel. This is lunacy, said Jerry, a former official for USAID. I'm guessing he's former CIA, but I repeat myself. He shared with the Reuters news agency his outrage. Now listen to this. This will kill people. I mean, if implemented as written in that cable, a lot of people will die. A lot of people wouldn't want our foreign aid to kill people, because certainly a lot of people have not died in Gaza and Lebanon and Syria and Afghanistan and Iraq. Nah. Oh, what about over 1 million soldiers in thousands of Russians? Okay, so now finally, if you stop giving money and weapons to these Nazis, it will kill people. He says, if implemented as written in that cable, a lot of people will die. If implemented as not written in the cable, a lot of people will die, because that's the way it goes, dude. That's the way it goes. So what we got is, you can research for yourself, and look all over creation. I've researched a number of places, looked online, social media, and all. The appearance is, as I said, to make it clear, there was a cutoff of foreign aid. There wasn't specific language apparently in it about Ukraine. So apparently the people who do the Ukraine stuff kept it going. Apparently Trump put out an executive order. And rather than name Ukraine, he named exceptions. Nobody gets money except the following. And a lot of times laws are written that way. You put in exceptions. You can't do this, except on the following days. You can't do this or that, except no one can do this except when doing this or that, right? So the bottom line is this. For instance, the law might say you cannot drive on the roads in Maryland without a tag, and it'll give you some exceptions. Farm vehicles that are properly marked, blah, blah, things like that. It'll give you exceptions. Then it may say police and fire, but it'll give you all your exceptions, right? Apparently, that's what Trump did. I don't know if he figured he had to fix it. I don't know if that was his plan all along. I don't know, but let's see. It's in Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So basically made 4 days, 4 or 5 days. Well, I guess you can't consider the first day a work day. So 4 days in. Really 3, because apparently he did it earlier. See Ukraine. And apparently, here's the interesting thing about it. Cutting all that USAID. Why is that important? Think about this. You got all these USAID color revolution things that they're always trying to overthrow governments, and they got all these NGOs. I mean, like in Georgia, I forgot 20. It's like one NGO for every 300 people in the country of Georgia. So, but they're not trying to throw that government, overthrow the government at all, right? In Ukraine, you got all these NGOs. You've got a lot of what do you call them? The AstroTurf media, you know what I mean, where they'll have like a website that's supposedly some kind of a Ukrainian website, or some other website. It's supposed to be a news site, and really it's just, sponsored by USAID or the National Endowment for Democracy, all that kind of stuff. So you got a lot of people sucking off the US teat, as it were, to get money one way or the other, whether it's, stealing some of the weapons money, stealing otherwise money, or of course these NGOs that are all over the place in Ukraine that have been. In fact, in 2014, when the U.S. overthrew the government, Victoria Nuland bragged that the U.S. had spent $5 billion in Ukraine on these democracy projects, on this USAID stuff, right? So you can imagine what kind of money they're spending in there on NGOs, and a lot of it is money laundering. Well, guess what? Apparently Trump cut it off. What's interesting about that is the discussion that was had this week, because this week, Trump made some inflammatory statements. Russia better come to the table, or else, we'll sanction them out of business. And then the Russians basically said, you're bluffing, dude. You're bluffing. They knew he was bluffing. And then apparently at some point, now Alexander Mercouris had a good interpretation of it, I think. He said he felt as though Trump was going to basically say, I'm going to try for 100 days, and if I don't get a deal, I'll put some sanctions on the Russians or something to keep the neocons off my back. And we don't buy that much from Russia anyway, and walk away. And the things that we do buy from Russia are like diesel fuel that actually went to India first, and it got rebranded as Indian diesel fuel. You know the game. We're going to get around those sanctions. The U.S. doesn't care about those sanctions. We'll get around them. So the bottom line is that Mercouris thought that threat was I guess in a way he was stating it's something for the neocons so that Trump could say, I tried 100 days here. Here's some sanctions on Russia, meaningless stuff, and then just walk away. Europe, whoever you guys, you handle it, right? Well, apparently, a couple of things happened, I think. Number one, Ukraine launched a lot of drones and missiles and stuff into Russia. One of the particular towns, I don't know if Trump was advised, but there was this town, this area in Ukraine where there was a lot of soldiers that got surrounded and unthinkable losses there. I could see the name of the town. You know what? I don't know why I'm even trying. I can never pronounce these stinking towns anyway. All I know is, let me see if it has it. I don't know. I don't know the name of those towns. All I know is some town went down hard and got surrounded, and as a result, there was extreme, unthinkable casualties. So things have been going kind of bleak for Ukraine. They've been launching lots more drones into they've been launching lots more drones into Russia, destabilizing things, and not to mention, I think the Keir Starmers of the world are really getting on Trump's nerves. And I think he just felt like, you know what? I've had it up to here with these people. I'm not screwing with them anymore. And might I add, I think and this was interesting. The Russians have spoken out, and President Putin said, yeah, they stole the election from Donald Trump in 2020. And if that hadn't happened, this war would have never happened, right? Now, we all know that may not necessarily be how the Kremlin feels. Maybe, maybe not. My thought is this, and Scott and I talked about it the other day. I would imagine that the Russians have people giving them a psychological profile of Donald Trump. Right. I would imagine that. Maybe I'm wrong. And that they're saying, okay, this is what Trump's saying. And, if you go along with him because of his psychological profile, it's something that'll, whatever the case may be. Maybe I'm wrong. But I'll put it like this. If I'm trying to deal with Trump and get a deal with him, look, anybody, right? For instance, I don't know if you know this. If a guy goes into a bar or whatever, and a woman likes him, one of the things they say is that she'll do is called mirroring. She'll kind of do things like he does or whatever, or people, somebody that likes somebody, a man that likes a woman or whatever, people do mirroring, right? And that ingratiates you with another person mentally. You're doing like they're moving like they are, faced like they are, kind of using similar gestures, things of that nature. Mirroring people is something that can endear people, you to people. They'll like you. They'll feel they don't even know why, right? So I think there could be some of that mirroring going on where Trump said, hey, they stole the election. They said, yeah, they stole it. It would have never happened if I was president. You're right. You're done. Yeah, clearly, of course. How wouldn't we know we're the Russians? Of course not. It wouldn't have happened. And then Donald Trump smiles. But all of that stuff notwithstanding, I think Trump hates Zelensky's guts. I really think, and Trump, as well as I do, there's a certain level of anger and vindictiveness. Didn't in one of Trump's books, I forgot, was one of his something of the deal books where he wrote like, keep note of who betrayed you. You know what I'm saying, Zelensky? Keep note of who betrayed you. Anybody recall what happened? He gets what do you call it? He gets impeached over Ukraine. He sends his boy Rudy Giuliani there, and they set him up and take him to the cleaners. Trust me when I tell you this. Some guy's hiding on the fifth a hole about to fill him full of holes, and that guy's the Ukrainiac. Trust me when I tell you this. The Trump clan, the Trump crew, the Trump group ain't got no love for you, Zelensky. They're looking at you. And they're saying, you got a lot of mouth on your son. I mean, he's running around doing the use. We're not listening to the Russians. Who do the Russians think they are? We're going to take the Russians. And I guess Trump's like, you got a lot of mouth on you, boy. Time to see if you can back it up. Go fly away, little bird. He's pushing you out of the nest. Just like a bird, the mother bird does. At some point, she pushes the baby bird out. Baby bird's got to learn how to fly. And Zelensky, guess what? You got to learn how to fly. right? You got to learn how to fly, Zelensky. You got to learn how to fight a superpower with not a dime from the United States. Now, if I were in your shoes, I would immediately come to the conclusion that I can't fight a superpower anyway, but especially with nothing from the US. And I would call said superpower and say, how about we put neutrality in our constitution and stuff like that, and we can just be friends again? I tried that. I don't think it'll work. I really don't. But I think something like that would be a good thing for you to try. Poor old Elensky, because things ain't looking good for you in the future. I don't know if he makes it through the weekend, because what are they going to do? They just got plastered. They just got blown. I wish I knew the name of the town. Maybe somebody here knows it. But I mean, some town got surrounded, and there was unthinkable casualties, and they were in a complete, what do they call them? A cauldron. They tried to get out. Well, that's why they call it a cauldron. You know what I mean? They put you in there and they turn the heat up. And what happens when it gets a little too hot? They start jumping out of the cauldron and they leave. What they'll do is they'll leave one road for you. That's the road. It's all clear. Take off. There's the road. You use it. Not a problem. When you get on that road, you're dead. When you get on that road, you're going to hit with artillery and mortars and missiles and everything. Bombers are going to fly over, you name it. So apparently, some town got surrounded. They left the road. They bombed the people in the town. The poor Slavs that tried to use the road to escape, well, of course, they met an untimely demise. And Ukraine's been having a bad week. That's what I'm trying to say, a real bad week. And apparently now it ain't getting better. Apparently Trump's situation is that he's had enough. Also, the President Putin saying we're ready to talk and saying nice things to him. Maybe that's what pushed him over the top, No, apparently he did this earlier today. So I think this move really is checkmate on Elensky. What is he going to do? And might I add, the Europeans are saying something like, well, we've got $300 billion and we can use that to buy American weapons, the Russian money. They're going to steal the Russian money. Bad news. America don't have the weapons for you. I don't care if you got $300 trillion. America can take your money. See, you know what the dumb Europeans may do? They may say, okay, we're going to give money to Lockheed Martin to buy whatever, a bunch of missiles. Raytheon, and Raytheon will say sure, and they'll how much? 100 billion, and they'll give Raytheon 100 billion. They say, okay, when can you deliver the missiles to Ukraine? And they'll be like, oh, let me see, what time is it? 9:30, 2029, I think, late 2029, maybe early 2030 at best. Thanks for the money, suckers. That's the best they can do. They ain't getting the weapons. There ain't no weapons to get. There's nothing there for you. So bottom line, Trump has spoken, although you got to say this. They should have saw it coming, realistically. Trump said he was going to do it. He said he was going to do it. In fact, his son tweeted out a while back, Don Jr., he tweeted, after January 20th, the ATM will be turned off. Don Jr. tweeted that. So they got an extra 3 days. And it put the pressure on Europe. I mean, what are they going to do? They don't have the money and they don't have the soldiers. Oh, but wait, I forgot. The Brits just signed a 99 or 100-year deal with the Ukrainians. So you know what? They should call Keir Starmer and say, send the mighty British Army. Send your armada of HMS ships, right? Send an armada from the British Armada that rules the high seas. Send a gaggle of hundreds and hundreds of thousands of British soldiers to absolutely overwhelm and overpower the Russians. Then there you go. This thing will be done within a month, I'm thinking. But I have a funny feeling it ain't going to work out that way. I have a funny feeling that all of Europe's going to start. You see, what Trump did, let me say this. Here's what's interesting. He just exposed the truth about Europe and NATO. He just exposed Europe, actually, because he exposed that NATO is the United States. Because the second that the US says no more money and weapons for Ukraine, I mean, Macron and Schultz and all of these people can talk a good game when the US is footing the bill and providing them the other weapons. But as soon as the US stops, they got nothing. They have given away all their stuff and it's been blown up. They don't have the troops, period. And might I add, the people at home are hungry and angry, and their governments would all fall if they were to try to send troops. And then if they sent them, they don't have the equipment for them. They don't have the supply lines for them. They just, what are they going to do? Send a couple? What are they going to have them drive to the front? What do you got? We got 10,000 British soldiers. All righty. And are they in APCs? Well, they don't exactly have APCs. They're riding Schwinn 10 speeds. They're driving in Mini Coopers. I don't know what the hell. How are you going to get to the front? Everything they got's been blown up by the Russians. They're screwed, and they don't even have any troops. Did I mention their countries are economically depressed? So Trump just exposed all of that in one fell swoop. And the person that, who really gets exposed, who really gets screwed out of this in a way, and that is Keir Starmer. Because throughout this time, interestingly enough, the Brits have clung to the myth that they're still a world power in this particular conflict. They're like, okay, we can get involved way more than the US. So they got involved deeply, doing all kind of terrible, horrible things that the Russians would pummel them for. But their thing is, well, we're with the United States, so they can't touch us. So they're going to pretend that there's some kind of a superpower. That's what Keir Starmer's doing when he's got nothing but a little cover from the United States. That's the only thing that keep him from getting his military and everything else blasted to pieces by the Russians. That they don't want to do it, really. Why would they? You're a mosquito on their back. And so now Starmer just went up and signed a 100-year deal. You know what Trump could say if they say, well, how come you cut it off? What Trump should say is this. I would love it. Trump should say, look, that's a lot of responsibility. I've learned that the Brits have signed a 100-year agreement with them. So I think I certainly appreciate the UK for taking this tremendous economic and military burden off of our back. I want to thank Keir Starmer. I mean, I was a little upset at him. I was a little angry at him for sending members of his party to work on behalf of my opponent. But that's all water under the bridge. We're burning the hatchet, apparently, and he's stepping in to take the bull by the horns. We'll be at the door. We'll be putting the flag down at the American embassy and turning the lights out when the last person leaves in Kiev. We're getting the hell out of here. And say hi to the Russians when they come marching into Kiev. If you don't want to get a deal. So now where's Zelensky's deal? The Russians should say, Zelensky, present me your deal. Remember the one where the Russians have to leave all of the oblasts that they've taken, where they have to submit Vladimir Putin and the entire Russian government for war crimes, give up Crimea, all that. That literally, it may sound like a joke. Literally, that's Zelensky's plan. To lose a war and pretend like you won. Well, you know what? Now you can really pretend like you won. You can run out of everything. And I knew it. I knew it was coming. Let me say one last thing, because I'm not going to be on here forever, but I want to say this. One of the things that we have to learn as analysts, all of us, you and me both, and I'm starting to learn it. It took me a week, to be quite frank with you, to get the grip of this. You can't pay attention to a damn thing Donald Trump says. Nothing. Only pay attention to what he does. Listen to what he says for some just direction as to what he's thinking, right? But do not, and look, this is, I don't want anybody to do this to me anymore. But Donald Trump said, did you see what Donald Trump tweeted? That's crazy. He doesn't know anything about. When Donald Trump is tweeting or posting on social media, I think he does it for effect. I think he does it for, I'm not saying he's some kind of a genius, because to some extent, I think he really is struggling with foreign policy right now. I think he's taking the bull by the horns and he wants to end this conflict. And he doesn't have the experience, let's be frank, he does not have the experience, as a diplomat. He feels like he has experience getting business deals, and it's not necessarily applicable. Human nature when it comes to sales. It's all one thing, so it may be. I think one thing, Trump, if nothing else, Trump has a lot of confidence. And let me tell you something. To be frank, it has been my experience. I did sales at one point. Confidence can make up for a whole lot. Confidence can make up for a whole lot. So Donald Trump, I think wants a deal bad. I think one of the things that happened this week, to be frank, all this tweeting, we're going to do this, and if they don't do this, and we're going to do this, he's tweeting, um, he's putting out executive orders on Russia and Ukraine. He's making social media comments, threats, and all that. He's talking to the WEF about it. I think one of the things that you could read from that came across, and McCurris kind of said this: all of the frenzied, chaotic tweets, social media posts, comments about getting a deal kind of showed that I don't want to use this word desperate. That's not a good deal. That's not the right word. Trump's not desperate for a deal to end the war, but he is anxious about it. He wants it done. I think Trump wants to come into office. He says, I can't do it in 24 hours. I'm going to do 100. I think Trump wants it in a week or two. I really do. I think Trump wants to come out of the hole. And let's face it, maybe he studied history, maybe not. But oftentimes presidents, they talk about that first 100 days. Think about this. You've heard the discussion of a U.S. president about the first 100 days. And what did Trump say? He said, I want to get this done in 100 days. Remember the 100-day plan for FDR and all that stuff, right? There's no accident. It's not an accident that Donald Trump came up with a 100-day plan. That's what presidents see as the period where they define their presidency, and that if they can have success, then they can have success and gain a lot of respect the rest of their presidency. Trump wants it, but I think he wants it a lot quicker than that. I think he wants it a whole hell of a lot quicker than that. And whether he'll get it, I didn't think he'd get a ceasefire. And still, the ceasefire is a struggle. Israel's still bombing stuff they shouldn't bomb, and they're hard-headed. I mean, the full all-out attack on Gaza has stopped, but they're still doing stuff, bombing here and there, killing people, attacking the West Bank. They're being Israel. They're being Israel. They were, before October 8th, they were attacking and killing innocent people, and they're still doing it to this day. But I think there was an effort made. They got a ceasefire for the most part, except that the Israelis don't pay any. I mean, how can I put this? They're not just for all-out bombing, but you know what I'm saying. They're still doing stuff they shouldn't be doing. Nickel and diming you to death as best they can. But Trump got that some semblance of a deal to work with, and now I think this is the other big one. He wants it. He'd love to get this thing quick. And the Russians are now. See, at first the Russians, I'm not going to say they were giving him the cold shoulder. No, but maybe playing hard to get a little bit. Maybe I'll go another way too. Maybe they needed a week to feel Trump out. You know what I mean? They wanted to look and say, okay, he's saying this. What does he mean? He's threatened a little bit. Let's see where he goes. And I think they felt Trump out a little bit. And I think they came to the conclusion that he genuinely wanted a deal. And let me add this, and this is critical. This is the best time for the Russians to get a deal, if they're going to get one. If they want one, I don't know if they do. If they intend to get one, I don't know if they do. But this is the best time for the Russians to get a deal. Why? Because Trump wants one bad, and because you're helping Trump out. Look, when it gets to 99 and a half days, by then Trump will be like, oh, well, what does he need to give a lot of stuff up for in a deal? What's he need to make a big deal of it? Because at that point, he's going to come to the conclusion, look, we got nothing. Let's just slap a couple unimportant sanctions on the Russians and just walk away, right? So you can't get as much. Right now, Trump really wants a deal. And I think if the Russians, they don't need to play hardball. No hardball. All the Russians need to do is say, look, whoever, Lavrov or whatever, say, look, Putin's got the pressure. We've lost 200,000 people. The people are restive. These are the things we got to have. Boom. And here's what we're willing to do, and lay that with Trump and say, look, that's yours. Study it. Call us back. And they'll get more now than ever because Trump wants a deal bad. I mean, you know what I mean? I'll give you an example. I remember when I was selling security systems, cameras, all kinds of stuff. And I did both commercial and I did residential and networked, all that stuff, right? And I remember a woman who called and she says that, well, my company said, hey, on the way out to this job, stop at this location. Some woman called in and said she needs a security system. I get there, she's outside. She had a break in, and I realized that she was like, "I'm not going back in that house until there's a security system. I'm staying over at my friend's house." And at that point, now, if I was unscrupulous, I could have charged her anything or did anything. Bottom line was, I had her. If I was an unscrupulous salesman, she wasn't going in that house. She wanted it, and she wanted to know how quick it could be in. And I said, "Look, let me call the office." Cal got back to her and said, "We can get it in tomorrow." She said, "Great." Boom. I could have doubled it up. I just charged her what we charged. I mean, it's bad luck to do that, to screw over people. And if you're ever a salesperson, you live off referrals, and you want to do people as nicely as possible so you can get a lot of referrals. I'm sure there's some salespeople in the chat who understand that. Bottom line, in a way, that's kind of where the Russians are. The Russians want a deal. They want out of that. Look, the Russians right now have never been in a better economic position, and they're in shape to move with Iran and China and North Korea and all these projects that they want to really get on top of. And I think the war is somewhat hindering them. It's in their way, because wars can be unpredictable. They don't want to be at war. And not only that, sanctions will be gone, and their economy's already going through the roof. And they're ready to really, tear the roof off the mother, right? So it would benefit them greatly to get a plan. Plus, who knows who comes in after Trump? If they can get a treaty, something in writing now, and get everybody to agree with it on it. So it's I think it's the perfect time for the Russians. Trump wants a deal. Trump needs a deal. They want a deal. They need a deal. But Trump needs it now, right now. They're ready to keep fighting. They want a deal, but they're going to win the war. But they don't want to have to keep fighting a war and win it. Because then they got to take more ground and more, and maybe hold it and maybe occupy. They don't want to go through all that. They want, boom, this is where we're going to go. This is the dividing line. This is ours. This is theirs. This is what they're going to have to do in there, to protect the safety of Russian-speaking citizens, et cetera, all done. Nice and clean, walk away. And Trump wants that deal right now. Never been a better time for the Russians. So I think that's where we are right now. Let me look. We got a couple of super chats, and let's see. We always get great questions for the super chats. Let's start with Rolf Steiner. He says, "Isn't having the USAID's Jewish bankers and power brokers installing their accomplices and friends into power via coups the way to American freedom?" Well, I don't know about the Jewish bankers and power brokers part. I'd say the ruling elite, but however you want to put it. Rolf Steiner says, "Has Ukraine paid a heavy price serving the Jews?" Well, see, to me, I'm with the guy on Little Nation. I mean, I don't agree with everything, but the United States and the West is more used than anything else. The Jewish people are what's the term? Cannon fodder. The Zionists are mostly. Almost all of them, to be quite frank. A lot of the Zionists are not religious. A lot of them are very secular. A lot of them are even atheists. And let's face it, most Zionists in America aren't Jewish at all. They're these Christian Zionists who are waiting for Israel to fall and for all the Jews to die or choose to be Christians so that Jesus will come in. Craziness like that. It doesn't really make any sense, to be quite frank. The religious part of this whole Zionist, Jewish, all that stuff doesn't make sense. It's actually a scam for the empire to control the oil in the Middle East. So it's not even about religion. It's about power. Let me keep going. Rolf Steiner. That's right. It's called Velika Novoselika. Okay, thank you very much, Rolf Steiner. Right. Any others? How about Rolf Steiner again says USA buys Toyota Hiluxes for Al Qaeda for Ukraine? Well, I guess those days are done. I guess Ukraine will have to buy their own stuff. Super sticker, Conan. Thank you, Conan. Rolf is on the money. Los Angeles donated fire equipment to Ukraine. Good. Yeah. Well, look, people are sick of that stuff. They're tired of all that stuff. They're tired. That was, and I think Trump's thing is that was under Biden. This is not the way I'm doing things. What's interesting is All foreign aid apparently includes the USAID. That's the regime change machine. Is Trump shutting down the regime change machine? We'll see. Find it hard to believe, but anything's possible. When this is over, where do you think Zelensky will be living? Don't necessarily think he will be living. I think he'll be sleeping with the fishies. I don't think of Trumpy. Trumpy wants him as a neighbor. Exactly. So living, we will see if Zelensky's living anywhere. Yanks itchy to attack Iran. Trump was out for that. Yeah, Trump does not want to attack any Iran. He doesn't want a war. I think, quite frank, it's getting obvious. Trump wants to clean that stuff up. He's got plans for here. I think he's got plans for the U.S. I think he's got plans for redoing, maybe reindustrial. I don't know if his plans are going to work. I ain't saying his plans are going to work, but I'm saying I think Trump has plans for here, and he wants to get that crap off his back. Come on in. Thank you. And I think that's it. Let me look on Rockfin. Okay, and last but not least, we're going to check Rumble for Rumble rants. Give me 1 second here. And and we're going to check my good old content, any Rumble rants. No Rumble rants. Okay, well, that's that. Oh, everyone, thank you very much. Certainly appreciate everybody who donated. By the way, please share this on all your social media platforms. Additionally, you can see everything going across the bottom, whether it's Buy Me a Coffee or PayPal, Patreon, whatever the case may be. If you can afford to help the channel, certainly appreciate it. If you can't, that's okay. Don't worry about it. Just do your diligent due duty and share this on all your social media platforms. On X, ain't on X, on Facebook, you name it, wherever you got there. What's the new one? Red Note. Share it on Red Note. Who cares? What do I know? Thanks a lot. I'm out. I don't think you can share it on Red Note, actually, but you get my point.